Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, once again to the Chelsea Roar with me, your host, Ian Kelly. Once again, bringing you the Blues podcast by the fans, for you, the fans. And today, it's all about the fans because these three gentlemen around me, as you can see, are all proper Chelsea. And we're here to talk about the future because what timing we had today, boys. The sale is finally agreed. Well, we're yet to wait. We're yet to hear of the announcement, but I'm sure by the time this comes out, within 24 hours, it will be announced. But first of all, I want to welcome two new members to the Chelsea Roar. First time speaking to these gentlemen, other than on Twitter. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you boys on. I'll start with you, Mark Worall. A lot of proper Chelsea fans knowing this, that watch the show will know exactly who you are. But for those that don't, tell us a bit about yourself, my friend.
Well, Chelsea season ticket holder, lucky enough to live quite close to the bridge. So been going for longer than I care to remember. Started writing for fanzines longer ago than I can remember. Wrote a book which weirdly was about the first Abramovich season, 2003, 2004, and sort of the whole Gate 17 thing went from there. So written more books myself and published books for other people. And it's kind of, I don't know, it just keeps rolling along now.
Yeah, why don't you talk about the latest book
that other people won't publish?
Well, why don't you talk about the latest book? Because you are a sub, and by the way, not a bad sub, for a friend of the show, Mr. Mark Meehan, Chelsea Supporters Trust member, who's been on the show in the past. He's unfortunately taken ill this evening, and what better replacement than yourself to come on? But he actually has spoken about you in detail in the last show. And he spoke about the latest book. We see that beautiful artwork on your latest book with the number 8 on the back.
Oh yeah, the Tales from the Shed book. Yeah.
Beautiful illustration, yeah.
No. So yeah, I mean the idea for that book came. I was getting the train up to the bridge. It was the Chesterfield Cup game, and I saw a homeless person on one of the platforms of station the train was going through, and it kind of reminded me of the Stamford Bridge sleep out that Mark's involved in kind of coordinating. That was his brainchild.
Sure.
And I when I got to the bridge, I kind of said to him, you know, is the sleep out happening this year? Da 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 da. I had this weird idea when I was on the train just to kind of do this sort of book aid version of Live Aid to help the sleep out. What do you reckon? And he said, yeah, it's a good idea. So I just thought, right. So I just got on WhatsApp before the game and messaged a load of people who write for the fans, CFC UK fanzine, and people who've written books for me and people who've written books, and, you know, people like Rick Glanville, the Chelsea historian, and just said, look, you know, would you be interested in doing this, contributing an article? And everybody did it. And literally within 8 weeks of the idea, the book was on sale. So I know it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it is. I mean, kind of raised $1,000 in a couple of months, which was, you know, awesome. A decent amount towards the fundraising for the sleep out. So it's quite amazing, really.
Well, I'm gonna obviously link the book obviously in the notes of this show as well, so people will be able to find it as well, and of course on Twitter at the Chelsea Roar, and the boys can plug their Twitter handles as well at the end, obviously, as well. So we'll promote the book from our side as well. I think it's awesome. I am planning to get it too, obviously, so I think everyone else should also. James, welcome to the show, my friend. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Get everybody acquainted.
Liking the
Yes.
shirt, James. Liking the
Thank
shirt.
you.
Beautiful.
Well, I'm showing my age a little bit. So this was when my first Chelsea shirt I ever had. This is a replica of that. So
Le Coq
many years ago now. That's the one. That's the one. And then my parents moved up north, so which was a nightmare for a Chelsea supporter, especially as most people around here support Leeds. So I wore it. I remember I'll tell you a story. I wore the shirt as a primary school kid. I was about 10 years old, and a dad at the gate when I walked in threatened to kick my head in. So that was my welcome to friendly Northerners. So yeah, I've been a Chelsea supporter for many years over land and sea. It's an honour to be on the show with Mr. Worall. Last time I spoke to you, I was exceptionally drunk. So on the stall. Tales from the Shed is an amazing book. Yeah, but that's the last time I spoke to you about when I bought that. So yeah, it's great to be here. My podcast is nothing to do with football. I do the Fortean News podcast, which is all about the Fortean world, so everything kind of paranormal, supernatural, and looking at a humorous alternative view and take on that. But yeah, passionate Chelsea supporter as a member of York Blues and a Chelsea Supporters Trust and all that type of thing. So yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, that's awesome. I love it, and of course, you've already plugged the stuff on Twitter as well, and I greatly appreciate that. So the favor will be returned. Alex, who you all may know, and myself, we're part of the Dublin crew. So you boys, I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more of us many times next season. Much to the chagrin of my better half, but she has accepted it as fact, and so it shall be written, so it shall be done, in the great words of Iron Maiden and Seven Son of Seven Son. Today, lads, we're gonna, obviously we mentioned the sale is pretty much complete. Government go ahead, a lot of kind of painful months, obviously, with this whole thing for all of us. And I'm sure I speak for ourselves and all Chelsea fans that we're just delighted that it's finally done. We're just awaiting that one announcement. And as I mentioned, more than likely, by the time this comes out, which is Thursday for you guys, we're recording this on Wednesday evening as Jose Mourinho hopefully lifts another trophy. This will be pretty much done by then. So what we decided we would do, we would break it down into sections, and I think it's only right to kind of maybe spend the first, I suppose, section to talk about last season, and kind of look at how it ended. Obviously 18 points behind Liverpool, 19 points behind City. We're in third. Technically we're the third best team in the land, but still a ways behind. Alex, why don't you start on this one? When you look back on last season, you look at it as success, you look at it as disappointment. I mean, there was plenty of moments both on and off the pitch that didn't probably help our cause.
Yeah, I think that, to be honest, I think last season was the definition of a mixed bag. Like, had you told me last August that, okay, Chelsea will finish third and win the Club World Cup and win the European Super Cup, I'd have been like, what? No, we're going to do this, and it's because I firmly believe, I don't know about you three folks, but before the season started, I was saying to people, not just with the blue tinted glass on, I genuinely thought we were going to win the league. I thought we were going to push on under Tuchel. I thought with the squad depth, the signing of Lukaku, I was thinking, no, we'll win the league. And for the first, I think, was it 14 games, we were out in front. I think we had conceded something stupid like 5 goals all season or something like that. We hadn't conceded from we hadn't conceded from open play. So we were pretty much, nailed on, looking good. But then I just think it's a case of things out of our control happen. Like, I mean, the key thing we obviously look at first is the Lukaku interview. That kind of upset the dressing room, kind of threw us a little bit there. We look at the injuries, Chilwell out for the entire season after the Juventus game. Multiple injuries to Kante. We had Lukaku out for a while at the start. We had, at one point, we'd no midfielders, we'd no front line. We saw as well, Reece James had injured for a few months as well, which really didn't help. And then, of course, if you look at December time, we're the only club that isn't allowed to postpone our games. Every other club can get games postponed for fun. We are the only club that puts in a request and gets denied. And I think that was ridiculous. Like, I think it was Wolves away that Tuchel only had, I think, was it 3 or 4 outfield players on the bench because there was nobody else in the squad available. Was still denied chance of scoring the game.
Certain club in Merseyside as well with the false tests as well. I don't want to mention any names. I just thought I'd throw that out.
There you go. And also, we had obviously, the big one, the sanctions, and all of us up on Tuchel's personal life. So we also reached both domestic cup finals. Unfortunately, I was at both of them myself. Unfortunately, lost both of them on penalties after 0-0 draws, which was heartbreaking. But people talk about, I know you said 80, 90 points behind Liverpool, yes, but when we went toe to toe with them in the 2 league games, in the 2 cup finals, there wasn't that big of a goal for class. We looked at them and think these are beatable. So I think over the season they had more consistency, but I think a lot of things out of our control affected us. And I think had those things not happened, you would have seen us a lot closer to the top of that league. So I credit Tuchel for even, getting the European Super Cup, getting the Club World Cup, making those 2 finals and getting third, given everything that's happened. I do think he's done a great job. It's been a mixed bag, but given the circumstance, I think he's done a good job. And it's a good foundation for next season to build on, I think.
Mark?
Yeah, I think kind of because there's so much been going on this season. It's like weird. I mean, if you look back, I think the turning point was half time at the London Stadium when we were 2-1 up against West Ham and top of the league, and I think that was the beginning of December, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and then obviously, as Alex has just said, there's like a culmination of injuries and misfortune kind of just all conspired to bring the house down, so to speak, on the challenge for the title. But I think people lose sight of the fact that we were top for quite a long time, pretty much half the season.
Yeah.
And it's, when you look back, if you kind of like look at the results and the way it kind of fell away, there's an element of frustration there. And then I think, for me, putting on to what Alex has said, I think the international break, the last one in the spring, in the early spring, which kind of coincided with the announcement of the sanctions. I think when the team came back from the international break, that was the end of the road, because the wheels basically came off in terms of form. And then the cup game, the cup finals, just really kind of frustrating. It's just been the story of Chelsea's season, despite all the injuries and issues. Even notwithstanding all that, if we had a finisher who could put away all those chances, I still think, we might have won at least one of those finals, and who knows regarding the Premier League titles. So I don't think it's, there's a lot of despondency about where we are, but I don't think there's too much need now that everything's been resolved. I think everybody can kind of look forward to next season with renewed optimism. I always think we're going to win the league anyway.
Yeah, me too. James, do you want to?
Yeah, so similar to what Alex was saying, when I heard Lukaku was coming in, I thought it was the missing piece of the jigsaw. His statistics, a few people were dubious, but his statistics in the Italian league was outstanding. He really was, putting the goals in, and it seemed to be like the missing piece of what we needed. And I really think that potentially had Chilwell and Reece James not been injured, we would have played to Lukaku's strengths a lot more, and we would have seen better results. But we were top of the league. We were playing amazingly. I was at the first game of the season. There was a real sense of optimism. Lukaku was there pounding the badge, scoring, and it just fell apart. I think, like I said, without those two putting them in, those crosses made a massive difference. And And we ended up being that my analogy was, it was like watching a man trying to have sex without an erection. You know, there was a lot of thrusting, but without putting anything away. And the psychological effect on me as a supporter of the whole sanctions and everything was huge. You know, literally losing sleep. This club means everything to me. It's my life. So to what it must be to someone that lives that every day and it's their livelihood and their futures, you know, no matter how much money they earn, they're human beings. And it's got to have an effect on you, hasn't it? If it has an effect on me, where it impacted my work and I don't work for the club, you know, it's gonna impact those guys. So I think it's really the significance of that can't be taken kind of for granted, really.
Yeah, I concur with that absolutely. I mean, it's even though like we're only, you know, an hour away on a plane, it's not like you can do it every week. So it's the same. Like when I was over at the bridge, I felt like, Jesus, this is home. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, I'll just park a tent here somewhere. Who needs a license for a property? Let's just stay here and wake up every morning and see the bridge. It's kind of like, and it's difficult. I suppose for you, Mark, you live closer, so you get to see it all the time and kind of breathe it in and kind of be around the kind of local community and stuff like that. What was the feeling like around that community when the unknown was there still always an element of confidence there? Did you just kind of buy into the kind of fear mongering? By the way, shout out to Cave Suckballs on Sky Sports News with his credible sources. I just thought I'd throw that one in there. Yeah.
We've gone out of business 3 times already, according to him.
Oh, Jesus Christ, man. We're literally down living with Lucifer at the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the media love a bit of Crisis Club Chelsea, don't they?
Ah, good Lord.
Yeah, you know, I think you know, obviously the I mean, it was just cataclysmic, wasn't it? You know, I think people, for a couple of years, you know, there's kind of always been this feeling that because the government hadn't granted Abramovich a visa, and he wasn't, you know, Boehly had come in with a bid 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So, you know, there was kind of all that was always lurking in the background, but nobody thought that it would happen. And nobody really saw, even though it's been going on since 2014, you know, the Russia Ukraine thing, when it actually happened, took people by surprise, because they didn't think, you know, Putin would put boots in the ground and go in hard. And then obviously we know what the ramifications there were for the oligarchs. And then, you know, I think sort of here, there is quite a large welter of sort of empathy stroke sympathy for Abramovich's situation, in as much as, you know, he hasn't been sat in a tank rolling into the Ukraine personally, and you know, he was involved in trying to negotiate peace. You know, the stories have always been there about the links with Putin, but there's never really, you know, any where people have published articles or books, you know, there've been court cases which have all been won by Abramovich, where, you know, just basically, where's your proof? So you got to feel sorry for the guy in a way, because, you know, when he came in, it's right, okay, who's this guy? I mean, I remember, you know, I'm old enough to remember exactly what was going on then, and nobody knew until it actually happened that who Abramovich was or what was going on. There There were no rumours. It just happened. It was completely different this time. And, you know, at the end of the day, it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's a huge deal, and we all have to hope that, you know, the way it's going to work with Boehly, I think, you know, we've all been used to Abramovich just spending money and just sacking managers because he spent all that money and they haven't delivered. But I think the difference now is going to be that the new owners are going to expect a return on their investment, as well as winning trophies, you know, and the team being successful in general. So it's kind of a different, I don't know, it's just a different, it's just, nobody likes change. People don't like change, and everybody had got used to the way it was under Roman. Win trophies, we all get upset when our favourite players become managers and get sacked. So I don't know, it's just Chelsea, isn't it?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be Chelsea if there wasn't a drama lurking around the corner.
Yeah. I think it's, I too am old enough to remember exactly where I was the day that Ken Bates sold the club as well, because I happened to be in the local news shop and saw the I think it was the Daily Mirror, and I was just like, what? And it was funny because about 2 weeks before that, I was playing a very old version of FIFA, and I just had this, I was a young man, like, and I had this little vision in my head. Imagine Chelsea had lots of money and I started signing, like, you know, Christian Vieri at the time, and I had I think I had Ryan Giggs on the wing. I don't know why I mentioned his name, but he was still playing at the time. And I remember kind of going, oh shit, this is reality. What's going on? I remember, like, when we signed Hernan Crespo, for example. I was a big Italian football fan, and I just absolutely,
top player he was.
Oh my God. Anybody that says
the old
Hernan,
Embassy Regal kit.
Oh, dude, anyone that says Hernan Crespo was a failure at Chelsea, I'm willing to fight. No problem, because that's bullshit. He's a goal every second game ratio in his first season. But yeah, anyway, we digress. I suppose what I done next was, guys, we looked at we're looking at, like, this is where the change is coming. And Mark, that was a nice little segue, the way you kind of brought us into the future. We're looking at a lot of players going out now. Yeah. So I just wrote down a certain amount of players that we kind of feel are almost gone or nearly gone out the door, or 100% out the door. So we know, obviously, Rudiger is gone. We know Christensen is gone 100%. We know Alonso is pretty much gone, just pending, you know, a fee, an agreement in price. Azpilicueta potentially as well gone. Obviously wants to go back to Spain, more than likely, and we can talk about that if anyone wants to. Jorginho, question mark over Jorginho. Possibly going. Juventus are kind of going in hard for him. And then we look at players like Ross Barkley, Bakayoko, Miazga, Baba, Drinkwater, Batshuayi, Kennedy, Kepa, and then the real question marks are over players like Lukaku, Werner, Ziyech. It's very, very interesting when we look at that list. Obviously, you can see with the new ownership, and it's kind of going on top of what the point that Mark made, that they obviously want to cut the wage bill, you know, for players that aren't going to be, you know, an asset to their investment, and they want to run the club probably a little bit more like Liverpool do. I don't like giving Liverpool praise, but I think we all have to praise how they run their model in terms of, you know, they get players that they need, and they're very, very successful in that way. And I've done a little bit of research on, I kind of like some of the American sports anyway. Just, I don't know, it's just one of those things. I kind of like reading up on it, and I've been looking at the LA Dodgers, and they really did in the first year 1, year 2, and year 3, they really put a lot of money into it, especially in year 1 and 2, into really paying a lot of money to bring top level talent in and then maintaining it. So I like that. I'm sure we all like that. And I know that's not solely based on on Boehly, but you know, he has Walter in there as well, who's his other right-hand man. So they're obviously a good team. Guys, when we look at those list of players that are going and potentially going, is there anyone there that we look at and say, right, no, I want to keep him, or you're happy to get rid of him, or, you know, any question marks on any of them? James?
See, you know, Rudiger's a massive loss, not just for his talent on the pitch, but the expression that he plays with and what he brings in terms of.
It's Chelsea, isn't it?
It's that classic, that classic kind of personality. He's, you know,
Dennis Wise, the Drogba,
the constant gesticulating and he's just got that aggression and swagger. You know, wherever he is on the pitch, whether the ball's at the other end of the pitch and he's by the goal, he's still got that swagger and that kind of aggressive concentration. And you know, it's again, it's underestimated how much that brings. You know, Azpilicueta's been an amazing servant as a captain. You know, I thought it was interesting actually what we don't see behind the scenes, because when there was an interview with the players and they said he would be the best manager out of the current squad, they all said Aspi. So he must be behind the scenes like that, but he doesn't bring that on the pitch. You don't imagine his team running through a wall for him like they did with JT, for example. And I can't see anyone in that, you know, that kind of current squad that is that kind of aggressive bad guy that Chelsea are synonymous with. Your Costa, your Drogba, your not that they were bad guys, but they were like they will win no matter what.
Do you not think there's elements of that coming into Reece James's game a little bit now that we could?
Yeah, Reece James and the Mason as well, definitely.
Havertz to an extent too. I think he's not afraid of a scrap.
Yeah. But it just that big. I mean, Reece James is interesting because he does it in a very quiet, understated way, doesn't he?
Brick shithouse, that's why.
He's amazing. He's an amazing guy. But it's those big personalities, those loud personalities that can make a difference psychologically on a pitch.
Yeah,
that we're going to lose. So there are a few. I think we're going to have to completely rebuild the squads. Like we're losing an entire back line.
Yeah.
Up front, it's a lot of mismatched players in terms of the system. And the midfield, you know, we've got some loanees coming back, but potentially we'd have to look at a whole different structure of playing.
Well, when we look at I think Mark and Alex, I think Pulisic, I don't think is going anywhere. I really don't, purely because he's Captain America, all that stuff. They're going to try and market that, and I mean, these boys are absolutely brilliant at what they do. They're businessmen. They're going to market him. It depends on whether Pulisic can I think stay fit, and B, just keep that level of consistency.
Yeah.
I've actually always been quite critical, and I've gotten threatened on Twitter by some people. One guy said he'd love to test my jaw or something like that, and I was kind of like, okay, that's no problem. I'm Irish, no problem, we'll do that. It was like, okay, Ziyech, and it's not because I dislike Ziyech. Again, I don't think he fits our particular system. He's not a runner. He does run, but he's quite lightweight. I think at the Brentford game, I think is case in point. I was actually at that game, and I saw one of the goals. He was shouldered off quite easily, on a kind of a little bit of a dilly-dallying. I think Ziyech, definitely, I wouldn't lose sleep on him going, and I think you could probably get an AC Milan or an Inter Milan or someone like that would come in and probably buy him for probably 10 million more than we actually paid for him, possibly. I don't know, but regardless, it's a player at the door. I think Werner, I guess, is the other question mark, guys, isn't it? That's I don't know what's your thoughts on that. Anyone want to jump in on the top? We'll go to Lukaku later, but does anyone want to jump in on the wingers / inverted wingers? Or
I'll jump in there. I think with Ziyech, what we saw last season is he works better. I think we saw even under Frank, he works better in a back four system. Whatever it is about the back three system, it doesn't suit him. Like the two kind of wide fronts, whatever, it doesn't seem to work for him. If we're playing a 4-3-3 system, he seems to come into his own. I think there was a couple of games of the season where Tuchel was playing with a back four, and he was out kind of occupying that right wing that like he did at Ajax, and he seemed to do quite well. So I admit, I like Ziyech. I think he gives us something different when he comes on, and he seems to actually link up well with Lukaku. He seems to be the one player that was linking up with Lukaku, feeding him in balls and getting in past that were actually benefiting him. In terms of Pulisic, yeah, look, I know he's young and they kind of want to market him, but see, it's a strange one with Pulisic because everybody remembers Project Restart, and when he came back after that at the end of 2020, he was unbelievable in the run-up to the FA Cup final where we lost Arsenal. He was absolutely unbelievable. Himself and Giroud instrumental in getting us top four. So we were all like, okay, this is Pulisic, he's hit form. But ever since that hamstring injury in the FA Cup final, he's never really found that form again. Like, he kind of blows hot and cold. Like, for example, he took his goal pretty well against Leeds, but then I think it was the same week, the weekend of the FA Cup final, he missed 2 or 3 sitters. And I'm sitting there going, well, which one is it? Like, are you a finisher or are you going to be fluffing these chances? With Werner, I love Timo Werner. I got to be honest, I'm one of these guys. I think Timo really gives us something to the team. I know he may not score every week, but he runs and he tries and he gives us something different. He never stops. So, yeah, to be honest, if you were giving me anyone out of those 3 to lose, personally be Pulisic for me. Like, I mean, I like Pulisic, but I kind of prefer the other 2. I know they probably want to market him. It probably won't be him. We'll just have to wait and see what it is, because I know that there's a lot of talk that we want to get Raheem Sterling in. So it would be interesting to see kind of where they go with that, like which one of those would make way potentially for Raheem Sterling. I think one of them will go, but it's very difficult to call which one.
What about you guys, Mark?
I think it's quite interesting, just in terms of, like the stats for the season that's just finished, in terms of the number of games a lot of these guys played. And we've kind of highlighted the James Chilwell loss to injury. I think if those guys are fit, and that is Tuchel's preferred system with the wing backs, and we can kind of go back to the brilliant Conte season when he reinvented football with wing backs, and we had Moses and Alonso tearing it up, and it kind of made the rest of the team fitted in around that without that many injuries, and that's why we won the league that season. And I think if we go into next season with James and Chilwell picking themselves and staying fit, then you look at those forward players, and I just wonder. I don't know. I'm not convinced by. It's a shame Hudson-Odoi sort of fell by the wayside in terms of injury, and you kind of wonder if he's going to be a player that's plagued by injury. And then the rest of them, you sort of look back and you think of Eden Hazard, and then you look at, I was watching the Leicester game the other week. You've got 2 number 10s there, Pulisic and James Maddison. And, it was like, and Maddison scored that peach of a goal. Yeah. And I was just thinking, at the end, you just have to be realistic. And some of these guys, if Chelsea want to be an elite level club and win the league, they're not going to do it with players who just can't hit. They're nice guys. And
confidence players, though, yeah. Confidence players.
It's just like, it's not going to happen. I really think Havertz is, he is a quality player, and I think if we can get a season out of him next season, he could make a huge contribution. But the wide men, I'm not sure. I'd kind of, I'm interested to watch England in the next few weeks, just to see if we get Conor Gallagher and Mount playing together, just to see that again. I'm kind of like, that's where my head's at. I'm kind of thinking, what would excite me would be, we need a player like, people say, variety, Raheem Sterling. I would rather sign Rafinha. Fair. I want a player that gets me that I think, wow, that is quality scouting, to get a player that no one's really heard of, bring him into the Premier League and he performs. That's what Chelsea used to be good at, and that's what we need to be doing. And I think I think we need to find the next Eden Hazard. You know, that mercurial talent that is really going to make a difference. And I don't want to be horrible to Pulisic and Ziyech and Hudson-Odoi, but I just don't think they're quite at that level, and I don't think they've got the ability to get to that level.
Okay. Well, James, I'm going to pass this over to you. We'll go into the next kind of phase of that, actually, because you probably agree with pretty much everything that's been said in terms of who do we keep, who do we not keep. The Lukaku one is a strange one. We're hearing that, you know, at the moment, we're hearing all kinds of reports, and generally, you know, most of the guys that are reporting it are pretty, I suppose, resourceful with their information, for want of a better term. If he is to stay, which apparently he wants to meet with the Boehly group and wants to stay, is he going about it the wrong way with trying to go straight to the top rather than going to Tuchel and saying, right, what do you think? You know what I mean? Is it again a bit of an underhanded kind of thing from him and his team? Because we had it at the FA, just before the FA Cup final again, more drama. I'm not saying he was at fault, because he came out and he made the statement, no one speaks for me. And like, we know no one speaks for you, son, because we know you like a camera in front of your face. Yeah. We had that earlier in the season. What do you think on that situation first? Because I think it's so pivotal to how Chelsea go forward, because I'm with Mark. I think Tuchel sees Havertz in that centre forward position long term if he can get the right people around him. And I have a sneaky suspicion, I'm just going to throw this out there, that you could see Havertz as number 1 and Broja as number 2 next year. Personally, that's just my sneaky suspicion. But I'll hand it over to you, bro.
Yeah, I think, again, you know, if we look at the Champions League finals, a perfect example of playing with Havertz and the way that the team kind of went around him. It's more that kind of Manchester City way of playing and the Liverpool way of playing, which is kind of attacking at speed rather than but then that changes the identity of Chelsea, you know, from when I first started supporting with Kerry Dixon up front to, you know, your Drogba, your Costas. We've always had that target man, and it's been kind of like that Chelsea identity. So it'd be moving a little bit away from that. It's interesting because, you know, Boehly gave Lukaku a big hug, didn't he, the last game, which was interesting as well.
By the way, can I just say, am I the only one that thinks that Todd Boehly is the spitting image of Kevin Costner?
Kevin Costner after a few pies, maybe.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's Kevin Costner after missing the gym for, you know, a month or two, but still Kevin Costner-esque. That's not a bad thing. I'm a Kevin Costner guy, so.
Yeah, I'll ask my mum. My mum loves Kevin Costner, so she'd say the same. But lots of Dragon. Yeah, it's an interesting one. You know, there's been moments. I can't remember who it was against, but that time when he picked up the ball and charged, you know, from the halfway line up to the goal, and then there's other times where he just doesn't look like he can be bothered, like he just doesn't care, and that's why he could have come out, you know, like you were saying about Werner, he could have come out, said those statements and given all, and Chelsea are very forgiving. You know, it doesn't matter who the players are; they could be terrible, but if they're playing for the badge, the crowd will get behind him. And Lukaku's not endeared himself to anyone, and it doesn't seem like the manager either. And it's almost, you know, with Tommy Tuchel, it's almost, sorry, my friend's German, he told me I had to say that. It's almost like he's almost going, yeah, it's not working. I'll put him on, it's not working. And it's almost like he's trying to do it as a statement. I know him and Ziyech are really close. That's been an interesting partnership. Werner as well, I think potentially he could bite us if we lose him. I think there is something there with Werner, and he is the most unlucky player. I mean, if a hairline breath on so many games, and Werner could have been one of our top scorers of the season in terms of offside, hitting the post, hitting the bar, Was the one game he hit both posts in the crossbar?
Southampton.
Yeah, he's just so unlucky, and the space that he creates as well by his runs, it's quite valuable. But Lukaku's an absolute conundrum. We still owe 50 million on him, so it's if he doesn't want to be there, then I don't care how good he is. I'm happy for him to go.
Yeah.
Mark, what do you think? That's an interesting point there. We still owe 50 million on him, and obviously Inter Milan are very aware of that, and they've kind of softened their stance recently in terms of saying, "Oh well, we got Dzeko, and it's basically Lukaku who's just older," which I thought was they were kind of lavishing in the downfall and backlash of the Chelsea fans at that time, and probably happy that it didn't work out, but. Would you see some sort of pathway back for Lukaku? Do you think it works? If Lukaku was told, if Tommy Tuchel is told, look, we've made an investment in him, he's on X amount of money, we got to keep him, make it fit, or do you think it's going to be a case where Tommy's going to talk to Boehly and co and say, look, I don't really see him as my number one. I don't see how him being number one now at 29 this year helps the progression of Kai Havertz. Make a deal somehow. And then obviously you make a deal by getting the wage bill off the books and then possibly send them back to Inter Milan. His agent talked about AC Milan too, so he's not quite loyal. It sounds to me like he just likes the city of Milan, right? Don't we all? But like, pick a side.
I think the key consideration that you kind of touched on there is Tuchel sitting with Boehly, and Boehly's going to say to him, look, here's a blank piece of paper. We want to be challenging for the Premier League next season, not in 2 years or 3 years' time. What do we need to do? Boehly's seen Chelsea play, 5 times or whatever, and he finally saw them win. He's going to go, well, what do you think about the big guy?
The curse is broken, by the way. The curse is broken.
Yeah. What is going to be interesting is what actually happens. Are we just going to because it's only 8 weeks, isn't it? It's like 8 weeks and we're back playing again. Is it going to be a case of, shit, what happened there? We get like Koundé, or however you pronounce his name, over the line, and maybe a couple of other guys, but all the rest of the players, the peripheral players, are still there, and the wage bill's still there, simply because the world doesn't want to move as fast as Todd Boehly might want to move. So I don't know. Lukaku, I thought it was a desperate signing. Quite why they just didn't go and, at the end of the day, Erling Haaland joined Man City for his buyout clause. Yeah. And he would have cost a lot more last summer, but you'd have been getting a kid in it, a kid who's got like 12, 13 years in him, who's already proven.
Off the back as well of winning Champions League, which that's when we got Eden Hazard too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think was it revealed last week that Lukaku was Chelsea's 4th choice option. Initially, they approached Haaland, then they approached Kane, then they approached Lewandowski, and then they settled on Lukaku. I think, to be honest, Haaland would have been perfect. The fact he's played the Bundesliga, he would have had that connection with Havertz and Werner. And I remember saying that after people were talking about whatever money, because my exact expression about Haaland, and I still stand by it, is the others are all top strikers, brilliant. I was saying this Haaland is he's a freak. He's a freak of nature. He's one of these ridiculous generational players who come in and score a lot of goals. So I just think that Chelsea should have said, look, just what do you want? We'll get it done. That would have been a real kind of statement, especially after winning the Champions League. It would have been like, right, off you go. Here you go.
Yeah, I think that's kind of nice actually, Alex, because that leads me into kind of now where I listened to Ben Jacobs today. I think he was on Alex Goldberg's podcast, and basically Ben was saying that Chelsea are trying to go for the model of sustainability Liverpool, but they do realize that they've got to put a lot of money in at the start to kind of get that long-term sustainability. And that just makes sense whether you're a businessman or you're not. I like the idea of him going and getting these players that Tuchel wants. It means that the power is not solely on Marina anymore. The power is not solely on. I mean, I think, and also they're talking about throughout the season of changing the backroom staff. So I think you're going to start seeing the likes of Scott McLaughlin, who's an absolute, to use the Rocks pun, as an absolute jabroni and stealing the living. Scott McLaughlin hasn't added anything to Chelsea whatsoever. He's basically just picks players that we all know of, and that's what Mark's point is, players that we all know of, and then goes, oh yeah, boy, that guy. We haven't seen that kid from Ligue 1, if that's how you say it, or that kid from the Bundesliga, or the Serie A that we've not heard of, come in and be given a shot. And I think that's where you're going to see some real structural changes in the backroom staff. And I think that's really where the bread and butter is. And we've already got the kid now that was part of AFC Wimbledon now that's come in as part of the development squad. I don't know whether you heard that today, guys. That's breaking news. He's going to have a big role in the development squad in the pathway. And apparently AFC Wimbledon fans have said he's actually really, really good. So you can see there's already kind of little subtle changes there. Emma Hayes this season and Thomas Tuchel are going to have a bigger say in transfers, which I think is good. It takes away some of that power from Marina, where she's not spending the big boss's money anymore. And it's kind of like, okay, look, you just negotiate. All right. You don't need to be the director of football. I think that was the downfall when we got rid of Emanalo. There was lots of controversy over the Emanalo thing and blah, blah, blah. But I think when Marina was the DOF, I think that's where we've seen a lot of problems. And obviously, we've seen player contracts, negotiations being put on hold with Mount, not just Rudiger. Yeah, we'll talk later, coming in with these flimsy offers, and then obviously the sanctions happened. Nobody knew about it. But Mark, to your point.
Sorry, I was going to say, especially with a Rudiger who made it fairly clear from day one. He says, if you give me 200k a week, I will stay. He says he wasn't trying to be smart. If you give me this, I'll stay. And then they tried to be smart with him, and the sanctions, they physically couldn't offer it to him. So yeah, that really annoyed me as well. With a player playing like that, if he says, I want this and this, you give him this and this, and say, right, please stay with us for the next 3-4 years.
Or at least meet somewhere in the middle, guys, right?
Exactly.
So I wrote down here, potentially with these players leaving, we need 2 centre-backs. We know that.
Yeah. We
got the boy, Levi Colwell, has had a fantastic season, and Tuchel wants to take a look at him in pre-season. They're after a central midfield player. Obviously, Declan Rice is the boy that everyone wants, Mark. I know you've talked about that quite a bit. The potential of 2 wingers, depending on if 2 go or not. And then the question mark over the striker thing. I think the striker thing could be easily solved if you got Lukaku off the wage bill and you looked at Broja, I don't know how people pronounce it. If you got rid of Lukaku off the books, I think if you have him and Kai Havertz and then potentially keep Timo,
yes,
you can mix it around. James, do you want to chime in on that? Have I got anything wrong? I think I'm right on the 2 centre backs, but everything else.
Yeah, we've got Saul, haven't we? Sorry. Who, it's not.
He's
really,
going to be sold, isn't he?
He's not really doing it. It's a whole squad almost. We're looking at every position pretty much. It needs looking at. It's a massive rebuild. And the problem is as well, we've seen in the past I remember when QPR just spent a load of money on bringing loads of players in, and it's a bit like a band, isn't it? I've been in bands where I've got a load of people together just because I get on with them and made amazing music. And then I've got loads of people who are just amazing musicians, and the music we made has been terrible. It's that thing where you don't always know if it's going to work. So it's
Synergy,
yeah. So getting that group right is going to be difficult. But I think you're right. I mean, Edouard Mendes is a perfect example of what you were saying previously, where I'd never really heard of him, to be honest.
Yeah.
But he's come in, he's done the job. He's seems to be a great character. He's passionate, and that's what we want. We want more of and need more of. You know, Hazard at the time, everyone was after him, but he wasn't a massive name. You know, he wasn't setting the world alight, you know, in terms of what he'd actually achieved. It was a huge potential, and he reached that at Chelsea. And that's what we kind of need. And I know the group that's taken over are really into that kind of stat-based. And Azpilicueta is another one, you know, where, you know, an absolute diamond. He's a 7 out of 10 every game, isn't he?
Yeah.
He works, you know, and that man, what a servant. Just have to say, if he does go, what a servant for the club he's been. Every single game, even on a bad game, that guy gives his absolute all.
Yeah.
You know, I absolutely love him. Absolutely love him.
I think with Aspi, it's just his legs are catching up with him. I think that's because he's not really had any major injuries, and it's just, I think it's just his legs are finally catching up with him.
It reminds me of when we saw the kind of decline of Ivanovic a few years ago as well.
Yeah. You know, and yeah, I mean, Rice obviously would be great, and he already had you know, that comradeship with a lot of the Chelsea players in terms of Chilwell and you know, Reece.
You
and
think
Mason.
the Twitter fan base is mental, right? Absolutely stone cold crazy. We all agree with that, especially the three of us that are on Twitter. Mark,
I stay off it. It's a cesspit.
You know what I mean. But like, Rice is ours when his contract is up. It's that simple. He wants to play for Chelsea. Yeah. We don't need him right now. We don't need him this season, especially for the money involved, right? You know, 120 million, 150 million, the British tax. Like next year, with 1 year left on his contract, that, you know, 120 million goes down to what, 60, 70 million if he tells the club, I am going for free next year. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think people need to kind of just chill a little bit on the Rice thing, because within 2 seasons, I think he will be a Chelsea player anyway. That's just my opinion, because he's a Chelsea boy. He said his dream is to wear that number 26. You know, that tells me all I need to know. Yeah. You know what I mean? But for now, I mean, let's talk a little bit about Mark. You brought up the midfielders. Just as we close out, let's spend the next few minutes just talking about kind of potential signings and, you know, loanees coming back. You mentioned Conor Gallagher. There's a lot of heat and war on Facebook with the whole Conor Gallagher and Billy Gilmore situation. I mean, 2 very, very different players, but I mean, 2 players that could be assets, because I don't know whether Jorginho is going to go. I think one of Kante or Jorginho will go, and I honestly think Jorginho probably wants to go back to Italy. I don't know. What do you think?
I think you know, time's tight, isn't it? And it's kind of, there isn't much time to get this right for Tuchel. So I think he's already got it in his head what he needs to do, and whether, you know, Kante and Jorginho are part of that template. I think, you know, a fit Mateo Kovacic plays for Chelsea every week.
First name.
Yeah, exactly. And then you look at, you know, Conor Gallagher has got a good engine in him. He's pretty much played every game for Palace when he's been available this season. He's got a lot. He's got a lot about him, and that's why I just wonder about, you know, having the 2 8s there, him and Mount. I really want to see how that works and what it means from a from a defensive point of view and also from an attacking point of view, because it could be pretty epic. And, you know, I mean, people might laugh, but, you know, you look at Pogba's a free agent now. Now, who would you rather have in your team? Paul Pogba, bang on the money, or I don't know, Jorginho? Who would you? You know, I don't know. You know,
I like it. I like where you're going, Mark.
Well, no, but it's like, you know, everybody. You know, when Chelsea signed Fabregas, you know, people thought, oh, that's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? But boy, didn't that turn out to be a good, you know, really shrewd move for a player that knew what he was doing and just wanted to be in a different environment and rediscover what a good footballer he is. And I'm not saying Pogba would do that, but, you know, if Chelsea are going to make swift inroads, and Tuchel keeps saying about, you know, we've got to go in fast and hard and get these deals done like that. You know, they're the types of deals where we go, right, we're having him. And people go, wow, didn't see that one coming. And that is what we need to do. So, you know, the mind deals like the Declan Rice thing and, you know, some of these other players that are being linked with Chelsea, or you know, stuff like Koulibaly. I mean, that one's been, you know, Chelsea were linked with Koulibaly when he was like
Conte.
18.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
5-6 years we've been after him.
Like, yeah, exactly.
Time to pass.
I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Not interested. It's not going to inspire me. You know, I just think we need, if we can get, I've talked to a few people about him, that Kunde, I don't know how you pronounce his name.
That's right. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Get that deal over the line. He
in
plugs that. I think everybody's going to be watching the playoff final between Huddersfield and Forest to see how Levi gets on at centre back. You know,
And Tino as well. Tino Andrew,
yeah. Yep. You know, I think Chalobah is a top player. You know, I think a lot of those problems are of our own making. You know, I know there's been a bit of an explanation, but the Tomori and Guehi sales will stand up in the fullness of time as being as stupid as De Bruyne and Salah.
Yeah,
like,
especially Tomori.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And that's on Lampard, unfortunately.
Yes, it is.
It is, yeah. So, but that is what it is, and we can't, you know, you can't look over your shoulder unless you're planning to go that way. Got to look at what the opportunities are now and what is going to make Chelsea competitive next season. Because the problem we've got now is, yeah, Liverpool and Man City are the two top sides in the country that pulled away from Chelsea in the second part of the season. But, you know, you've now got, I mean, you know, Conte for me, and I know I'm Italian, so I'm biased, but Conte for me, you know, that he knows football.
Yep.
And that first season that he was at Chelsea, you know, that is the mark of that manager. And even
I love him.
It all turned to shit in the second season. He still won the FA Cup.
Yeah, because he didn't get the players he wanted.
And it grieves me, absolutely grieves me to think that
he's at Tottenham.
You know, he could land Spurs some serious silverware. But if he, you know, the ENIC are saying they're sticking 150 million on the table. If they do and he gets that team together, that they're going to be a team to, you know, to challenge. So it's not, you know, there's a lot of self-entitlement on Chelsea Twitter for sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm just waiting when we lose to Bournemouth in October. There'll be red crosses on Boehly's face on Twitter.
Oh, it's
Are you Tuchel in or Tuchel out?
these.
Yeah.
Oh my God, these people, man, they're not actually
Yeah.
Chelsea fans. I think they just literally found a team to go. Oh, you know, they're the actual plastics that
Yes.
people try and throw stones at. I think no, because I'm the same, dude. Just a quick little segue. I was a Juventus fan as a kid, so like Antonio Conte was like one of my favorite players. So when he came as a manager, it was like yes. But
Yeah.
you know, Conte loves Lukaku. Just saying, could be a little straight swap there for England versus Belgium.
Thinking that myself.
No, I don't think that will happen.
We'll try.
I think no, but look, as we kind of wrap up, I think we're going to see something. I mean, obviously they're going to move real quick on this. And I do believe that, yeah, he's got a, you know, as James mentioned, I think he's got a plan in his head. He's obviously, if you said, here's my player, I think Mark, you mentioned as well, here's what I want, here's who I don't want. I mean, we've seen that kind of passive aggressive side of Tuchel as well, where he's kind of said, oh, it's interesting that, Lukaku wants to speak to the new owners. I thought he would have spoken to me first. It's quite clear he's sending us subliminal messages here of saying, I don't want this guy in my team. Him and Ziyech can go and take their little love in and just go elsewhere. You know what I mean? I think that's really...
Go to Milan with it.
Yeah, and that's where I don't see Pogba coming in also, because Pogba's very close with Lukaku too. And I thought if you brought him in and you have Ziyech and Lukaku in, you could potentially see like a little bit of a... I think Lukaku and Ziyech's egos are actually bigger than their talent at the moment. So for me, it's a no if I was on a panel.
Okay.
You know, for me, it's a no if we're on X Factor here or something like that. But I think with the likes of that kind of wage bill off, I think you'll see really quick for sales. I don't think you'll see that Marina stuff of haggling over, you know, 2 million or 3 million here with the likes of Marcus Alonso, with the likes of, you know, Batshuayi and Kennedy and Kepa and stuff like that. I think you'll see that. So obviously Kepa's one who's obviously bound to go, probably go for an okay price, but the wage bill again is cut. And then we need a backup goalkeeper, which you could probably sign a fairly decent backup goalkeeper on a free. I mean, again, just to go to Mark's point about Antonio Conte, absolute genius. They signed Forster on a free yesterday.
That's a great sign.
Big 6'8" goalkeeper, freebie, you know what I mean? It does exactly what the likes of Antonio Conte needs, because Conte doesn't need, you know, sweeper keepers. He needs a big boy, and that's a very, very good signing. So we need that shrewdness, and I think almost Tuchel needs to act as our director of football this year, doesn't he? In a lot of ways.
I think so.
And get him to play. Look, I'll be honest. There's something in my head. I'm probably going to get crucified for this. I know Chelsea Twitter kind of have mentioned the Neymar thing and stuff like that. I know that. But there's a part of me thinking logically here that with the Kylian Mbappe deal, you know, which is what, £1 million a week or €1 million a week or close to it, which is mental. Then you've still got Messi on that money. Then they want to bring Pogba in, which I hear Pogba is closer to Juventus than anywhere else. So maybe Mark could be right. I would definitely take Pogba in their team tomorrow, 100%. But
considering how well he plays with Kante for France as well.
Yeah, that's what makes sense to me. But guys, I would not sleep on the Neymar thing, because basically L'Equipe are coming out, who are the voice for PSG, and saying if they get a decent offer in for Neymar, they would take it. Now, I am not advocating for that move, but if you think about it from Boehly and the new ownership's point of view, and they're talking about statement signings and the fact that Thomas Tuchel absolutely loves him, and he said that, if Thomas Tuchel wants him and you get the guy for 60, 70, 80 million, I mean, you know, what say ye?
Personally, I don't like Neymar. I've never liked Neymar, to be honest with you. But what I will say, if it's a case of Thomas Tuchel says, look, I love the player, I want to work with this player again, I trust Thomas Tuchel. Same with if it was Ousmane Dembele. I know he's injury prone, and know he's out for long periods. If Thomas Tuchel says, I trust this player and I want to go for him, I say we go for him, because I think with this manager, whatever he says, we back, because we are not going to get a manager as good as him in football, in my opinion. We're not going to get a better manager. So just whatever he wants, I'm like, yeah, Tuchel, it's up to you. What do you want? Cool. Doesn't matter what we think. Like, if I don't like him personally, but if he wants Neymar, get him in.
And I'm just thinking, the reason I'll say that to you, Mark and James, like, from a marketability standpoint and from a marketing standpoint, that's going to be huge revenue and income on a global scale for the likes of Todd, Boehly and co. So you see where my angle is here. What do you think, James?
Similarly, I don't like him, but I've seen him in a Barcelona shirt, etc. So that's part
yeah,
of
me too. Yeah.
Doesn't help.
But he's probably one of those characters that you hate until he plays for your club. And
like JT for everyone else.
Yeah, and Costa, and yeah. I mean, I think we're going to see a very different Chelsea and how we work. We've had an owner who has kind of, someone scores against us, he says, I like the look of him, Willian, Salah. Whereas another one, they go, oh yeah, he looks nice, let's get him. Torres we bought just because he was, like a shiny new toy. We're not going to get that anymore. I know Tuchel is very much in terms of this, very much like stat based. There could be some kid playing in South America or Africa that is doing unbelievable things that he'll be looking at. I'm almost certain in the way that we recruit. So I think we're going to see a lot of names that we've never even heard of. I think the problem is the time period, and every club's going to know that we've got a limited period to sign with lots of outgoings, and the prices are going to rocket. So, getting Koppert off I think he's our second highest earner, is he? Or third highest?
He's one of he's up there. Yeah.
He's definitely top 5 anyway.
Getting him off the bill, it'll be a good one. But, I do think we're going to see some just...
Werner is second highest. I'm just looking at it there. It's Lukaku and Werner. Yeah.
Yeah, Lukaku's on silly money as well.
Yeah. So I think we could see some just... I think there'll be people that I've had an eye on, and our academy as well. We've got some amazing players. I mean, look at the sorry, I've forgotten his name. I'm terrible with names. It's my ADHD. The Chaloba. Who would have thought he would come in and do as well as he did? I never thought he could, from his appearances in on his loans. But my God, what a player he's been for us, and he's going to be like Mark said, he's really going to be something special.
I think Ampadu, I wouldn't sleep on Ampadu either.
Yeah, Ampadu definitely. Yeah, Ampadu's really got that, and he's got that grit as well that we were talking about. He gets stuck in. So we've got a few loanees that out there that could really do a job that we might have forgotten about as well. So I think it's going to be I think it's going to be a slower rebuild than we're expecting. I think there might be one marquee signing just to make a statement, and all the rest will be like a slow build that foundation and then build up from there.
I expect to see the Jules Koundé transfer done very quickly. I think whenever Boehly's officially announced, we see Koundé in the next couple of days, because I don't know if you guys saw, you probably have, he actually is in London at the moment. Jules Koundé, he's wandering around London, and fans have come up to him and they've said, hey, what do you sign for Chelsea? And he's kind of laughed and said, maybe. So I think within the first week of Boehly's reign, we see Jules Koundé holding up that jersey.
And by the way, he is tops.
Oh, he is. I didn't realize that Sevilla, who he was playing for, actually had the best defensive record in La Liga last season. Large part of that thanks to him. So people forget, we were about to sign him last year, and I think Sevilla really done us dirty there. We'd agreed a deal, I think, for 41 million, and then all of a sudden we sold Kurt Zouma, and because we sold Zouma, they were like, oh, well, you need a centre back, we're going to add 20 million on. And I know Marina gets flack. I actually respect it for not going for that one, because it was like, no, look, you're moving the goalpost. But I think as soon as Boehly's takeover is confirmed, he's the first name in.
Mark, we're going to finish up with you. Jules Koundé coming in, a name hotly tipped for us as well as 20-year-old Gvardiol, who Tuchel seems to be very, very high up on, another Croatian. I personally think that's who's going to come in. And if he does go with the three at the back, obviously we're going to see Levi Colwill. We need those defenders anyway, because if he is going to start, and I think he will persist with the three at the back for the time being, and then I think you'll see slowly over the course of seasons he'll go to his favorite 4-3-3 or 4-2-4. But I think for the moment, I think we'd all agree on that, guys, would we? That he'd probably stick with the 3 at the back for the moment. But Mark, what do you...
I think especially with Thiago, I was going to say, especially with Thiago Silva there, I think you need that kind of cover just in case with his legs. I know he keeps himself in good shape, but it just works better with him in the middle of that kind of, as the conductor in the middle of those two.
Yeah. Mark, you get the honor of being the final say on all of this. You're the director of podcast now.
Yeah, no, I think people just need to sort of stand back a little bit, and maybe not throw too many babies out with the bathwater. I would, for example, if we can keep Azpilicueta, if you look at, Aspi's what, 32, 33 coming up, and Silva's 38. I think Aspi brings so much to the football club, and he can still do a job. I think you just need some of those players around. I wouldn't necessarily get shot of them. I think if we get Koundé over the line, and then, a marquee signing that people go, yeah, Todd Boehly's the new owner of Chelsea Football Club. And if that's Neymar, who's 30, and he brings an ingredient of magic that's been missing, and you get a season out of him, because I just think that's where Chelsea fell over last year. It wasn't that we didn't necessarily have the players. It was just we didn't get a season out of the players we needed to get.
Can you imagine, by the way, Neymar, Havertz, and Mount in a front 3? Just thinking.
Well, who knows? Who knows?
Trying to get people excited here for the possibility.
And then Bro just scores 10 goals in pre-season.
I was going to say, as much as I don't personally like Neymar, it would be very surreal seeing him in a Chelsea shirt, in a good way, because like, geez, he's in a Chelsea shirt. It would be quite surreal.
Mm-hmm. And it raises the profile, as you were saying, Mark, as well. Like, that's the marquee signing, but also it raises the profile from the financial level and the global level, which we're already a global brand, but that's a statement signing. Because is Ousmane Dembele on a free a statement signing? Don't know. Is Paulo Dybala on a free a statement signing? I don't know. Is Nkunku from RB Leipzig for 60 million? Is that the German tax that we got with Timo Werner? I don't know. But if you bring in a Neymar or, someone of that ilk, it probably would be like, oh shit, Chelsea have kind of are taking things seriously here now.
Yeah. It's not gonna be boring, is it, the next couple of months?
No.
Well, as TT himself said, and I love this in his presser before the Watford game, when he was asked about adding to the squad, he's like, I'm not looking to add to my squad, I'm looking to rebuild it.
Yep.
I love that.
Here's a cheeky one before we go. Just, it's only from my mind. It's not out there on Twitter universe or anything like that. It's actually from a good friend of the show who's actually a Liverpool fan, but made a really good point to me. And he said it to you as well, Alex. Shout out to Niall. He said, why not send Lukaku back to Inter Milan and negotiate a deal where you get Lautaro Martinez in return? Because that Lautaro in a front 3 with those boys would be quite phenomenal. So I'll just leave that there. I'll leave that there. We can dream, right?
Absolutely.
Well, look, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. I mean, look, we're not going to sleep on this, because we have got, even though the football season's over, this podcast has just began. There is no way in hell that we're not going to have content on a daily basis or a weekly basis with Chelsea Football Club coming into the summer months. And I hope you two boys will be happy to come back on. I hope you've had fun. And
it's been great. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah,
thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you, James. And thank you, Mark. Hopefully see you
No,
back on.
No, pleasure,
Absolutely.
mate.
Absolute pleasure. So we'll definitely see these boys back on. Alex is on every other week anyway, so we'll definitely have Mark and James back on. Guys, just I suppose if you need any more Twitter fans, you probably don't. Why don't you give your handles there and let people know? And I'll just preface it by saying this: no dickhead Chelsea fans can follow Mark or James or myself. Okay, so if you look in the mirror in the morning and you see a dickhead and you just want to rag on Thomas Tuchel and rag on the football club that you supposedly follow, don't hit the follow button because you're going to be blocked. So James, where can they find you?
Yeah, it's at James Koppert, which is with a K. It's Dutch, Koppert CFC. On my podcast is at Fortean, Fortean News Pod.
Perfect. Mark?
Follow me at Gate 17 Marco. If you want to check out the books, they're at www.gate17books.co.uk.
Mark, you're going to give me all those links after the show, and I'll put them in the description as well, and we will make sure that they're there so that everybody can find them. Do go and check out Mark's stuff. It's absolutely fantastic. I implore you to do so if you're a Chelsea fan and you like reading. Even if you don't like reading, you will after watching Mark's stuff. So for me, it's been an absolute pleasure, guys. Do follow us, like and subscribe to the show. We're building this channel for you. Like I say, my motto is it's a Chelsea podcast by the fans, for the fans. And quite clearly, you can see everyone so far that's been on these episodes is a fan of football. We've had Liverpool fans on. We don't hide away from debates or anything like that. So we're trying to grow this here, and I appreciate the support. It's something different than your usual fear mongering. This is literally Chelsea boys who love the club and have your best interests and the club's best interests at heart. So once again, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, at the Chelsea Roar. You can find me on the Twitter, and of course Chelsea Roar gmail.com if you want to get in touch with the show. We're on Facebook at the Chelsea Roar, on Instagram at the Chelsea Roar as well. So for us, the Boehly era has begun. Let's get excited, Chelsea fan. Have a drink of beer, have a glass of wine. If you're off it, have a can of Coke Zero, and keep the blue flag flying high and keep the faith.